All right, so welcome to our eighth session. This is law number 8, the law of pain. The law of pain says good management of bad experiences leads to great growth. Now, this law is kind of painful to discuss because it deals with testings, trials, difficulties, bad experiences. So, of course, when we begin to talk about those things, it brings a lot of bad memories. It brings um, emotions that are sad, or it kind of brings um, painful memories back. However, as we all know, some of our greatest growth come from our most painful experiences. That means if we know how to deal, how to manage bad experiences, this can actually work positively for us. So later on, we're going to talk about how our bad experiences or painful experiences can become positive experiences. And not everyone um, gets optimal value when it comes to their painful experiences. Now, as we begin, let me ask you this question. How do you usually respond to bad experiences? Now, this is given, right? Bad experiences, painful experiences, all of us experience this. And probably many of us are going through some bad experiences in our lives, even right now, right? You may be attending this session or you may be listening, but um, some of you may not be feeling well. Some of you may be going through some difficult times, or going through some trials in life. So bad experiences are common. This means that if we're not experiencing it now, then we will experience it tomorrow or the next day, because this is a common experience. So, how do we usually respond to bad experiences? How about you? Can you think for a moment? When bad experiences happen to me, how do I usually respond? Now, there are some ways that people would respond to bad experiences, and um, let me see. Some would explode in anger. Okay. So that's how they vent out. That's how they react. That's how they deal with bad experiences, getting angry. Okay. But of course, we know that if not controlled, anger can lead to more serious consequences. Like people can commit crime, people can do things that they have not, or they cannot, they would not have done had their temper or had their anger was controlled. But for some, that's how they usually respond. So anger, okay, they would lash it out at someone, and they would, show their anger, or just uh, get angry. So that's how some people would deal with bad experiences. Some would shrink emotionally, or some would just keep quiet, some would just cry, some would just keep it to themselves, some would just, they would just, or they would rather keep it and pretend that it's not there, pretend that everything is okay. So they would just shrink emotionally, cover up. Okay. That's how some people would deal with it. Or They would detach themselves from the experience as much as possible. They would deny that bad experiences. Some would numb themselves with alcohol or with other substances so that they will not feel the pain. And of course, we know that this is not a good way to deal with pain or bad experiences because it does not take away the pain after the effect of the alcohol is gone or any substance. The pain's still there. So you would just have to numb yourself again. So again, this is not a good way to deal with bad experiences. Or simply you just ignore it. Okay. It's okay. It will just pass. Uh, don't be such a don't be too sensitive or something. So you just ignore it. Okay. That's how some people would deal with bad experiences. But one thing is common. How we respond to bad experiences would actually reveal much of ourselves. Because every problem we encounter would introduce us to ourselves. There would be encounter. Okay, how do you deal with this issue? Are you strong enough to deal with this issue in your life? So every problem introduces a person to himself. Now, these are the truths about bad experiences. Okay, so these are things that are true, and we might as well get to know them because these are reality. So the first thing is everyone has them. Okay, not just you who is listening to this lecture this evening. Everyone has them. I have them. You have them. Everybody has had bad experiences, or they're going through some bad experiences, or they will go through some bad experiences in their lives because that's just life. Okay, that's just um, in this world, in this imperfect world that we live in this sinful world that we are living in. Everyone will have to face some bad experiences. Another truth is no one likes them. Okay? So you don't have to pretend that, I welcome bad experiences. I like them. I enjoy going through some problems, some trials, some losses, some difficult times. No, no one likes them. Okay? If only we can avoid them. But reality is as much as possible, we don't want to have anything to do with bad experience. We just want to be happy and just go through life with minimal bumps along the road and bad experiences. So no one likes them. Okay. So that's quite common to everyone. Everyone has them, but no one likes them. And this is very important. Everyone has them, no one likes them, but few make bad experiences positive experiences. What we're saying is everyone goes through some bad experiences in their lives, but only a few can turn their bad experiences into positive experiences. Only a few do not waste their bad experiences. Only few can actually make their bad experiences as a stepping stone for growth. Now, I ask you to assess yourself how you respond to bad experiences. Now, looking back in your life, have you turned your bad experiences into positive experiences? Because you see, life's difficulties move us either forward or backward and make us better or bitter. So that's a choice. It's either You can become a better person after those bad experiences by turning them into positive experiences, or you become bitter. You become, you know, angry all your life, blaming others, passing the buck, not taking responsibility for any wrong decisions that you have made. So again, this is what the law of pain would teach us, that life's difficulties are common. We have them, we don't like them, but we can turn them into positive experiences that can move us forward, that can move us upward, not backward, and can make us better, wiser individuals, not bitter. All right. Now, John Maxwell would talk about his pain file because all of us have had bad experiences in our lives. Just like I've said, some of us may be going through some bad experience, but when he tried to enumerate, when he tried to remember his pains, he would talk about this pain in his files. Okay, he would talk about the pain of inexperience. Okay, have you ever experienced that, um, a bad feeling that you're not just competent. Okay, you probably feel disappointed or you feel embarrassed because you're not good at it. Okay, you're not doing well. Okay. So inexperience. So, or you may have done something that you regretted because you should have never done that. Okay. And no, you're just inexperienced. And another thing is the pain of incompetence. I should have seen that coming. Okay. Or the pain of disappointment. All of us, I think, have experienced this. I wish it had never happened. I wish it was just a bad nightmare, a bad dream that I can just wake up out of it. Okay, because of the disappointment or the pain of conflict. Okay, not all human encounter feels good. Okay, many people that we come across with, okay, are we can't get along. We simply can't get along. And the pain of conflict is not only between two people, but sometimes it's, you know, between a group, in a church, in an organization. Okay. That's why in leadership, you had to be familiar with conflict management because temperaments, personalities would clash. And conflict is a great source of stress, okay, to everyone. Why can't we just get along? Sometimes we would just wonder, um, why can't we just get along? Or the pain of change. That means I don't want that to happen. Status quo, maintain, sustain. Okay, but life has to go on. Things change, people change, situations change, and we have to also move on. And many times it causes change. Now, again, these are Maxwell's pain file or the pain of bad health. Okay. You always thought that you would have good health, but suddenly you are faced with your mortality. I remember Maxwell when he talked about having a heart attack when he was 51 years old. He thought that he would always have good health, but it was that point that he realized that he has to take care of his health much more. Okay, he has to make it a matter of importance. Or the pain of hard decisions. Okay, you just can't make everyone happy. Okay, it's hard. You just have to make hard decisions, even if it means some people will get mad at you, some people will get angry at you, some people will criticize you. the pain of hard decisions, or the pain of financial loss. If only I could get that back. Okay. Investing somewhere that it did not work out, or spending your finances on something that has no return, or the pain of relationship loss. I think most people would agree that this is one of the most painful experiences, when we not only grow apart, okay, grow in different directions, but of course, when there are separation, okay, or the pain of not being number one. I deserve to be there. I should be there, okay, not that person, or the pain of traveling. When I'm away, I feel um, sad, or this one, many of us can relate to this, the pain of responsibility. Why do people expect so much from me? Okay. You are overburdened with responsibilities. And sometimes you get so tired of those expectations and responsibilities that ah, it's already a burden. Okay. Now, I'm sure you have your own pain files. When I was preparing for this lesson, I was also looking at my own pain file. Okay, looking back the past 50 years, the past um, years, uh, just to check what kind of pain I had to go through, and if I learned from them, if I turned them into positive experiences. So now these are um, some of my pain file, some of what you see in my pain file, the pain of betrayal. Okay, I really don't like being betrayed. I thought we were good friends. I thought I can count on you, but I realized it's not true. Okay, or the pain of embarrassment. Maybe some of you can relate, no? Many experiences that has caused so much embarrassment until now, we cannot forget. We cringe every time we remember those moments. Or the pain of conflict. One of the um, greatest stressors could be conflict. Okay, between individuals, between family members, between church members, between coworkers, and so on. The pain of being stupid. This one is, very personal, because you cannot blame anyone else but yourself. Okay, how in the world did I came into that situation? Okay, I mean, you're just assessing yourself, and you just I'm just so stupid. Okay, that's painful, right? Or the pain of persecution. I've gone through some persecution in my life, my professional life, and it's not enjoyable. Okay, when people try to pull you down and to pin you down and to, you know, try to destroy you. Number six is also something that I think we all can relate. Um, some of our most painful experiences is not actually they're not actually our own pain, but seeing someone whom we love going through pain. Okay, someone that we love suffering, and that also cause so much pain in our lives. Or the pain of separation. Okay, when you separate, it really causes pain. So again, these are some of the pains. Now, the reason why I'm showing this to you, both Maxwell's pain file and mine, because again, I was going through this lesson, trying to evaluate myself whether I was able to turn the bad experiences into positive experience. So I had to do this, though, to look back and see what kind of files do I have in my pain file in my brain. You can also do this too. No, not to bring back the bad memories, but to learn from them. Okay, to admit that these things that I have gone through were so painful that it's still there in my mind, and um, I need to deal with them. All right. So how to okay? I think the lesson that we can get from all of these pain files that we have is, what have all these painful experiences taught me? What did I learn from all these experiences? Because growth is the best possible outcome for any negative experience. Okay? So growth, when you become better, when you become wiser, when you become more sensitive to others or to the Lord, when you become more mature, okay? So growth is the best possible outcome for any negative experience. And again, we should not waste our bad experiences. Now, how do we turn our pain into gain? Interesting, right? Because if we just dwell in our pain, we will just, be in self pity, or we will just um, mourn. But our pain, when we see that our pain can be turned into gain, then that's something. Yes, I'm going through this. I have to acknowledge I have emotional um, reactions, which are, normal. Okay, I'm sad, I'm angry, I'm disappointed, but they don't have to stay this way. These experiences can be turned into something valuable, turning your pain into gain. So we'll talk about this, um, how to turn your pain into gain. First, you choose a positive life stance. Now, many people would just say, just choose a positive attitude, or a positive outlook, or a positive, perspective. But we call this a positive life stance. Life stance is a term used to describe people's overall frame of reference. So it's not just limited to your attitudes, your assumptions, your expectations about yourself, other people, and the world in general. So these are your overall frame of reference. So this includes your attitude, your assumption, your expectations, and it's just positive. It's not negative. Okay. So we don't have a negative stance, but a positive one. So where does this positive stance come from? Where will it come from? Now, um, this is very important because as believers of the Lord Jesus Christ, as Christians, if there is a group of people who should be manifesting a positive life stance, that should be the Christians. Okay? Because as we see in the Bible, our pain, our negative or bad experiences, doesn't they don't just happen by accident. Okay? They have a purpose, a plan, and a design. And that plan, purpose, and design come from God. So that means we have to embrace a positive stance instead of a negative one. Now, when we choose a positive life stance, you have to remember these statements. How did we arrive, for example, in choosing a positive life stance? So these are facts of life. If one, life is filled with good and bad. Agree? I think we all agree. Okay, not everything in life is good, not everything in life is bad. It's a combination of good and bad. But some of the good and bad I can't control. That's life. So, so one day you will have a good experiences, you will have good experiences, but the other days you will have bad experiences. Okay, you just can't control it. That's life. Okay, that's normal. The next statement is, some of the good and bad will find me. Just have to accept the fact that it's not always good that will find me. Many times it will be the bad that will find me, right? We just have to admit it, okay? I'm just breaking it down to all of us so that when we arrive in choosing a positive lifespans, we have rationalized it. We have thought about it, okay? Life is filled with good and bad. Some of the good and bad I can't control because that's life. Some of the good and bad will find me, not just the good ones, or not just the bad ones. Now, if I have a positive life stance, the good and bad experiences will actually become better. Because as we have said, we can turn our pain into gain. We can turn our bad experiences into positive experiences. However, if I choose a negative life stance, the good and the bad will become worse. Okay? There's no value in those experiences at all. It will just pull me down. It will just give bring me to a sense of helplessness and hopelessness, and then will I will just surrender to that victim mentality. So that's it. So if I choose a negative life stance, the good and bad will become worse. That is why I choose a positive life stance. Now, this is very important. We just don't say, okay, I choose a positive life stance. It has to be this way. I am choosing a positive life stance because of these reasons, because of these facts. Okay. So it makes sense. It's logical. It's, yeah, I mean, oh, why would you choose a negative life stance if the good and the bad will become worse, right? So that's why we choose a positive life stance. But beyond this logic, beyond this, mental exercise on why I would choose a positive life stance, we actually have promises from the Word of God. And as believers of Jesus Christ, I choose a positive life stance because this is a life stance that manifests what? Faith in God. This is a stance that manifests hope in God. This is a stance that manifests surrender to God. So that's why I choose a positive life stance. That's why it's unbecoming of a Christian to become hopeless, helpless, and stay as a victim all of his or her life because, again, everything happens by God's design, by God's purpose, and by God's plan. And we have the following verses in the Bible. Many of you can memorize this, of course. Romans 8:28. And we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are the called according to his purpose. Okay. Not all things would make us feel good. Not all things would, you know, would be good, but all things can be worked out for our good. And we know that it's God, it's the Lord who is at work, okay, who turns this bad experiences into something good, something that would be good for us and that would glorify Him. Another verse, this is very, many of us are familiar with this, the story of Joseph in the book of Genesis. If there's one story in the Bible that manifests this truth about going through difficult times, going through trying times, experiencing betrayal from your own family, experiencing um, injustice, experiencing being imprisoned for something that you did not do, for standing up for what is right. That is Joseph. Okay? But in the end, he was vindicated. And in the end, his um, testimony was summarized in Genesis chapter 50, verse 20. Okay. But as for you, ye thought evil against me. Okay. Now, this evil, remember, it's almost 13 years of hardship and painful experiences, being separated from his family, being betrayed by his family, being in prison for most of these years for something that he did not do. This evil against me, but God meant it unto good. So God can turn these bad experiences into something that is good because he has a plan. You God allowed you to go through those experiences. God allowed you to go through those pain and hurt and tears, not because God is not good, not because God is not loving, but he has a plan. And his plan is to bring to pass as it is this day to save much people alive. That's why the nation of Israel was um, saved because through the famine, because Joseph was sent by God ahead to Egypt. All right. Now, another very familiar passage is Ephesians chapter 3, verses 20 to 21. Now unto him that is able to do exceeding abundantly above all that we ask or think. Wow, I really um, love this verse because what we can only see is the pain. What we can see is what happened to me, what you did to me. But we do not remove God out of the picture because what happened to us can actually work in us and work through us and work for us, exceeding abundantly above all that we ask or think. And of course, it takes faith to trust when we don't see. It takes faith to trust God even if we don't understand. It takes faith to trust God even if we do not know. So that's faith. That's why we choose a positive life stance. Now, the second thing about turning pain into gain is this: embrace and develop your creativity. Again, don't waste your pain. Now, I've seen in my lifetime, I've seen some of the most spiritual people get sick. Okay. Um, some um, was able to turn those pain creatively. Um, many of them refuse to be defined by the sickness or the terminal illness that they went through, but instead they turned it into a ministry because it's that creativity has the power to look pain in the eye and to decide to turn it into something better. Okay, it's creativity. Okay, I'm not going to be defined by this pain, but I'm going to turn it into something that will benefit not only me but others as well. Now, look at this verse in Second Corinthians chapter 1 verses 3 to 4. Blessed be God, even the Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of mercies and the God of all comfort. Look at this. who comforteth us in all our tribulation, that we may be able to comfort them which are in any trouble by the comfort wherewith we ourselves are comforted of God. So, our trials, our pain, our bad experiences is actually an opportunity for us to experience God's comfort, God's help, God's healing, God's sustaining grace, so that, here's the key, it's not to make us more comfortable, but to make us comforters. That means our pain, our trials, our difficult and painful and bad experiences can actually open doors for ministry. Remember, everyone has them, okay? Maybe not at the same time, but I have seen again people who have opened up themselves because they realize that the person who's reaching out to them has gone through the same trial that he's going through. Even if that person who's reaching out will not say, I understand what you're going through. Even if he will not say that, the fact that he has gone through that experience is reason enough for me to feel understood. That's why let's not waste our pain. We can turn it into a ministry. Some people would use it as um, in this modern times would uh, would vlog it. Okay, how they deal with difficult times, how they deal with illnesses, and so on. So turn it into something that will bless others. Develop your creativity. Some people would write about it. I remember the hymn, one of the hymns that I really love. It is well with my soul. Okay, it's a hymn that still continues to bless so many hearts, but it's also a hymn that came out of a family tragedy. So that family tragedy that could have broken um, the one who wrote the hymn actually became a blessing even to us nowadays. So that's how you can turn pain into gain by embracing and developing your creativity. Of course, many of you are familiar with this passage in 2 Corinthians 12:7 to 10. Um, Paul had a thorn in the flesh. Okay. So that's another term for the bad experience, a thorn in the flesh. And that thorn in the flesh had a purpose, and that is to humble him. Okay. And many of our bad experiences actually has that purpose to humble us down, to help us realize that we don't have the answers. We don't, you know, we're not the greatest. It's to make us realize that we are still dependent on God. Okay. And then another benefit, it's Paul asked the Lord to remove that thorn. Okay. You know, it makes us more prayerful when we have problems. Many of us, when life is smooth, life is going smoothly, sometimes we cannot remember to pray or remember God. But during difficult times, that's when we pray and we realize that, Lord, I really need you. And of course, in verse number 9, that's when he experienced the grace, the amazing grace of God, which is sufficient for him. Okay. And then in verse number 10, that's when he said, you know, bad experiences are not bad after all. I can take pleasure in them, I can use them, I can benefit from them, and I can say, for when I am weak, then I am strong. No, this is not a sermon on problems, but as believers, we need to have this kind of stance, outlook. Okay, our pain is actually a door to gain if we manage it well. All right, embrace the value of bad experiences. Again, all of us either have gone through or going through or will go through bad experiences. Now, look at the statement. Facing difficulties is inevitable. Okay? You can't avoid it. It's inevitable. But learning from those difficulties is optional. It's sad that for many, they just faced difficulties, but did not learn from them. And that's what we want to address in the law of pain. Maximize, optimize your growth based on the pain that you go through. Um, Here's another verse from the Bible. But we had the sentence of death in ourselves, that we should not trust in ourselves, but in God, which raiseth the dead. One of the growth, a valuable growth that could happen in bad experiences is we grow in trusting God. We grow in faith. Okay. What a blessing to realize that I am nothing. I don't have anything. I surrender everything to the Lord. We take our dependence, our faith, our trust off ourselves and then surrender to Him. I think that's God glorifying because without faith, it is impossible to please Him. Now, how do we turn our pain into gain? The next is make good changes after learning from bad experiences. Okay, that means there should be changes that should happen in my life after bad experiences, after what I learned from the bad experiences. Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced. And again, going back to that passage, Paul learned to be more humble, okay? Because that thorn in the flesh was meant to really humble him. So for him, I should learn from this. It humbles me, okay? It did not make him bitter at God, or it did not make him question God. Lord, I'm doing your ministry. Why me? Why now? Why not others? Things like that. But it made him a better person. It changed him. It made him more humble. You know what? Many of us have not seen that some of the bad experiences that we go through are actually God's way of changing us. It's actually God's way of taking off, okay, the bad things from our lives. It's like Job would call it being purified, okay, so that we will come out as pure gold. All right. So learning from them. Now, here's another thing. Take responsibility for your life. What we mean here is that many people when they go through bad experiences, they just want to pass the blame on others. I'm in this situation because of my parents. I'm in this situation because of my family. I'm in this situation because of others. Okay. That's not good. Okay, we have to take responsibility. Many of our bad experiences actually are caused by the wrong choices, the wrong decisions that we have made in life. Okay, now, okay, I made a mistake. Okay, I made a wrong choice. Accept that responsibility. Accept responsibility. Don't pass the buck. Don't blame others. Be accountable for the results Take ownership of your mistakes because that's the only way you can move on. That's the only way you can say, okay, I've made a mistake. I'm sorry. I need to do something about it. And it's actually the first step when we say, Lord, I have sinned against thee. Be merciful unto me. Heal me. That's when we take responsibility, not passing the blame on other people. Okay. But taking responsibility, being accountable, taking ownership, and then surrendering to the Lord. All right. I'd like to end with this story about the donkey. Okay. I want you to read this with me. Um, One day, a farmer's donkey fell down into a well. The animal cried viciously for hours as the farmer tried to figure out what to do. Finally, the farmer decided that the animal was old and the well needed the well needed to be covered up anyway, so it just wasn't worth to retrieve the donkey. So he invited all of his neighbors to come over and help him. They all grabbed a shovel and began to shovel dirt into the well. At first, the donkey realized what was happening and cried horribly. Then, to everyone's amazement, he quieted down. A few shovels, a few shovel loads later, the farmer finally looked down the well. He was astonished at what he saw. With each shovel of dirt that hit the donkey's back, the donkey was doing something amazing. He would shake it off and take a step up. As the farmer's neighbors continued to shovel dirt on top of the animal, he would shake it off and take a step up. Pretty soon, everyone was amazed as the donkey stepped up over the edge of the well and happily trotted off. Now, here's the lesson: life is going to shovel dirt on you, all kinds of dirt. The trick to getting out of the well is to shake it off and take a step up. Each of our troubles is a stepping stone. We can get out of the deepest wells just by not stopping, never giving up. Shake it off and take a step up. Now, it's just a story, but many of us would find ourselves sometimes in the deepest pit. And sometimes people may not help after all. They would just throw dirt on you. But I hope you will not forget this story. Life is going to shovel dirt on you, all kinds of dirt. The trick to getting out is to shake it off and take a step up. Now, when you apply the law of pain to your life, could you go through these um, steps? How do you deal with pain in your life? Some people would do anything and everything possible to avoid pain at all costs. Well, that's normal. Some people would say, I know pain is inevitable, but I try to ignore it or block it out. I know everyone experiences pain, so I just endure it when it comes. I don't like pain, but I try to remain positive despite it. Or I think the last two, we had to work to reach this last two. I process the emotion of painful experiences quickly and try to find a lesson in them and make changes proactively as a result. All right. So again, I think these are in your notes. Using bad experiences as a springboard for using your creativity. Okay. Define the problem, understand your emotion, articulate the lesson. What did I learn? identify a desired change. What do I need to change? Brainstorm numerous pathways. How can I be a blessing to others because of this pain? Receive others' input if you need an advice, and implement a course of action. And of course, for our group discussion, how would you describe your attitude towards negative or bad experiences in your life? Okay. Do you burst out in anger? Do you just shrink emotionally? Do you just shut up and just keep quiet? Or you get lessons out of it? So you may want to describe how you deal with negative or bad experiences. And then I hope we can be a blessing to each other. I'm sure many of us have gone through bad experiences which have brought growth in our lives or have made us better individuals. I think each one of us has a story to tell. How a bad experiences was turned into a positive experience. Would you share that with your group? Okay, back to you, Mamairel.